My name is Rebecca Stroud. I'm 44 years old, and 11 days after a stroke took my mother's words, my sister called a family meeting in the hallway outside her hospital room and handed out an agenda she'd printed at the library. I'm not making that up. There were bullet points. Room 411, Stone Run Regional, 4 o'clock on a Saturday. My mother asleep on the other side of the door with her right hand curled up on the blanket like a bird, and my sister Candace standing under the visitor board in her good blazer, passing pages down the line like a woman running a school board vote. The top of the page said Plan for Mom. Under it there were 3 bullets: rehab costs, the house, and then, third bullet, in my sister's favorite word, transparency. Our Aunt Phyllis was there with her purse held in both arms the way she holds it at funerals. Candace's husband Roger stood a little apart, studying the floor tile like it was going to be graded. My Mitch had his hand flat on my shoulder blade, and I could feel him deciding not to say anything yet. Candace waited till everybody had a page. Then she squared hers against her folder, the way you'd square a deck of cards, and she looked at me, not at Phyllis, not at Roger, at me, and she said it. "You do the sitting, Becky. I'll do the handling. It's what I've been doing for 6 years, and it's what Mom would want." There it was, 52 years old, my sister, standing 8 feet from a woman who couldn't answer, dividing our mother up like a shift schedule, the sitting for me, the handling for her. And then, while I was still holding that, she turned to Phyllis and added the part she'd clearly rehearsed in the car. And before anybody asks why the account looks thin, Mom's been generous with some people. That's all I'll say. We'll keep that in the family. Generous with some people. She said it with her eyes already coming back around to me, so the whole hallway could watch the words find a place to land. What my sister didn't know was zipped in the side pocket of the tote bag sitting by my shoe. It had been in there for 2 days. It had been in my mother's freezer for a lot longer than that, underneath the rhubarb, exactly where Mom left it. And on my phone, saved since the 30th of March, there were 31 seconds of my mother's voice that I'd listened to so many times that week, I could hear them with the phone in my pocket. Candace thought the only voice left in that family was hers. She was about to find out our mother had already gotten there first in pencil, in her own arithmetic, with a bank appointment on the calendar she missed by 7 days. Welcome back to Porch Stories, where the daughter who got the chair finally answers the daughter who took the checkbook. If you've ever been the daughter who drove your mother to every appointment while somebody else drove her to the bank, pull up a seat, because this story is yours too. Tell me in the comments which one you were, the sitting or the handling, and hit subscribe, because a voicemail I almost deleted is going to do the talking for a woman who couldn't. To understand what was in that tote bag, you have to come back 5 weeks, to when my mother could still say my name. And to understand what that's worth, you have to know what my ordinary looked like, because I'd have told you it was nothing special, and I'd have been wrong. I drive a school bus, Route 7, Brewster, Ohio, 44 kids, kindergarten through 8th grade, the same loop of township roads I've run for 19 years. I'm first out of the garage at 6 to 10 every morning, and I know which porch lights will be on before I see them. I count heads. That's the whole job, if you boil it down. You count them on, you count them off, and you never pull away from a stop till every head is down in a seat. Everything else is just steering. My husband Mitch runs the parts counter at the tractor dealership out on Route 30, 47 years old. Reading glasses he's finally quit fighting, and a gift for finding the one gasket in the county when a man's baler is down and the rain is coming. He courts me the same way he did in high school, which is to say, he leaves the last coffee in the pot for me and thinks I haven't noticed. Our daughter Paige is 17, marching band, trombone, second chair, and gunning for first. She's got her license now, which means I've spent a year in the passenger seat of my own car, saying mirror, 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 like a prayer. She plays her scales in the kitchen because she says the acoustics are better, and the dog howls on the high ones, and that sound trombone and old dog, 6:40 on a school night, that's my church. The dog is Boone, shepherd mix, gray to the eyebrows, 13 years old. His job is the driveway. He clocks in at 7, lies down where the gravel meets the grass, and files a report on everything that passes. He takes the job seriously. We don't ask him to. And then there's my mother, Dolores Hedrick, 74 years old, 5'1" in her walking shoes. She ran a cafeteria line at Brewster Elementary for 31 years, which means half this town got handed a tray by my mother before they got handed anything else in life. She could portion mashed potatoes to the ounce with one wrist. She kept a garden that was mostly rhubarb and stubbornness. And every Tuesday of my adult life, she put a supper on her table at 5:30 and expected whoever loved her to be in a chair by then. Here's the thing you need to know about my mother, the thing this whole story stands on. Her law was fairness, not the loud kind, the measured kind. When Candace and I were girls, she'd split a candy bar with a butter knife one cut, dead center, and then the older one holds, and the younger one picks, so nobody could ever say the knife played favorites. Chores went on a wheel she drew on the back of a feed calendar. The good seat by the window got traded by week, and she kept track, and there was no appeal, because there didn't need to be. She had 2 words for it, and she said them the way other mothers said amen. Even is even. Somebody got a bigger slice at a church dinner. Somebody's kid got skipped at the gift exchange even is even, and my mother would quietly fix it, and that was the end of the discussion. 31 years on that lunch line, and I promise you no kid ever got a smaller scoop for having the wrong last name. Even is even. She built her whole life on 2 words you could carve on a butter knife. My father was Lowell Hedrick. He fixed diesel engines for the railroad for 34 years. Brewster's a railroad town. Or it was, and he died 6 years ago this June. Quick, in the yard he was mowing. What he left my mother wasn't a fortune. It was a paid-off house on Quarry Street, a railroad pension that kept the lights on, and a life insurance check for $52,000 that my mother put in a certificate of deposit at Windrow Savings and never touched. She called it the roof money. Sometimes the funeral money, when she was being practical at us, it sat there, earning its little bit of interest, and that was how she liked it. Money, to my mother, was like canned tomatoes. You put it up. You didn't eat it. In August. Next door to her, there's Chester, 77, widower. Been not quite retiring from the grain elevator for 11 years now. He mows his yard on Thursdays, and somewhere along the way he started mowing the near half of Mom's yard too, and neither of them has ever once mentioned it out loud. That's Quarry Street. That's the world my mother lived in. People did for each other, and kept the books in their heads, and the books balanced. And Aunt Phyllis, Mom's baby sister, 71, church directory photo hair. She loves us all, and she believes the last confident thing anybody said to her, which matters later. So remember it. Now, my sister. Candace is 52, 8 years on me, and she'd tell you those 8 years were a job, and honestly, she wouldn't be all wrong. She married Roger Tuggle, who sells crop insurance and laughs one beat late at everything, and they raised twin boys who are off at Bowling Green. Candace does her Christmas cards in November. Candace irons pillowcases. Candace walks into a funeral home, and the funeral director relaxes. In our family, Candace handles. That's been the arrangement since before anybody thought to call it one. When Dad died, I was the one who sat with Mom at the kitchen table those first awful mornings, and it was Candace who did the paperwork, the insurance calls, the 14 casseroles in the chest freezer, the thank you cards done in 9 days. She'd stand up at the end of a family anything, clap once like a coach, and say her sentence, "I've got it handled." I used to love her for that sentence. I'd watch her take a whole hurricane of family mess and walk it out to her car in a labeled folder, and I'd feel the relief come off me like heat off a July road. I'll say the ugly part plain, because I've had a year to look at it. The relief was the door I left open. Nobody takes over a family in one day. They take it over one "I've got it handled" at a time, and every single one of them felt like a favor. So when Candace came back from the bank 6 years ago, this was maybe 2 months after Dad's funeral, and said she'd had herself put on Mom's checking account, joint, both names, so the bills don't lapse if anything ever happens. I remember exactly what I did. I thanked her. Out loud. I think I bought her lunch. You want to know the sound a trap makes when it closes. It sounds like your own voice saying thank you. 2 Christmases ago, she went a step further and set Mom's account to paperless. Less clutter, Mom. Everything's online now. My mother has never owned a computer. She still writes checks at the grocery store, God love her. In cursive, the checker has to squint at. Paperless didn't mean less clutter for Dolores Hedrick. It meant that the one report that came to her mailbox every month, the statement, the actual list of what came in and what went out quietly, stopped coming, and the only person in America who could see my mother's money anymore was my sister. I didn't clock any of that at the time. I'm telling you the shape of it now, the way you can see a storm on the radar after it's passed over your house. At the time, it was just Candace handling. Candace was always handling. And if the family ever needed a reason why it was Candace on the account and not me, well, that had been settled years ago too, hadn't it? 2013 was a bad year at our place. Mitch's shoulder surgery, 4 months of no overtime, and we did a debt consolidation, the kind with the payment book, and we crawled out of it in 3 years, and I'm not ashamed of a single month of that. But it entered the family record. Candace kept it entered. Never mean, never direct. Just a little flag she'd run up every couple of years. You know, money's never been Becky's thing, pleasant as a woman mentioning the weather. And Phyllis would nod, and the record stayed current. There were dents in the quiet, those last 2 years. I want to lay them out in a row for you, because one at a time, they were nothing. And that's exactly how these things are built to look. Mom skipped the church women's bus trip to Florida. First time in 9 years. $900. And she said it just didn't feel like the year for it, and I believed her, because 73 felt like a reason. The roof, the actual roof, the thing the roof money was for, got quoted, and then didn't happen. Waiting on a better price, she said. My mother, waiting on a better price, with the shingles curling over the porch like burnt paper. The margarine in her fridge went store brand, tiny thing. It caught on me, like a splinter catches on a sweater, and I pulled the sweater loose and kept walking. And one time standing at her sink the fall before last, she said money's a little tight this month, and then she heard herself say it and laughed and waved it off. Tight, listen to me. Your daddy would swat me. I offered to look at her bills with her. She said, honey, Candace's got all that handled. And the sentence had been true so long that both of us mistook it for safe. Then came the 30th of March, a Sunday. My phone rang at 4:30 while I was pulling a pork roast, and I let it go to voicemail, because that's what a kitchen full of steam does to a phone call. When I called her back after supper, she talked about rhubarb, whether Paige would want some for a school thing, whether the frost had lied its way out of the forecast. There was a little hitch in her, like a person standing at the end of a diving board. I asked if she was okay. She said, oh, I'm fine. I'll talk to you Tuesday. And Tuesday came with a busted radiator hose on bus 14 and a band fundraiser. And whatever my mother had walked to the end of that diving board to say, she folded it up small and took it back home with her. I didn't listen to the voicemail. I saw the little dot, figured it was the rhubarb question, and I didn't listen to it. I'm going to be carrying that one for a while, so I'd appreciate it if nobody in the comments helps me carry it. I've got it. 5 weeks later, on the 6th of May, a Tuesday, my mother stood up from her kitchen table around noon, and the left side of her brain shut a door. It was Chester who caught it. Tuesday's can day on Quarry Street, and Mom's cans didn't come out. And Chester says he stood at his kitchen window a full 10 minutes, arguing with himself about whether a man can knock on a door over garbage cans. Thank God he lost the argument. He found her on the kitchen floor with her coffee cup still rocking on the table, called the squad, and rode his own truck behind the ambulance the whole way to Stone Run with his flashers going, 77 years old, running every yellow light in Stark County out of pure loyalty. Stroke. The kind where the clot goes to the left side, where the words live. They got her stabilized, And I will skip you through the part of this that smells like hand sanitizer and sounds like a hallway at 3 a.m, because if you've lived it, you don't need it back, and if you haven't, I'm not going to be the one who gives it to you. Here's where she landed, 11 days in, her heart strong. Her legs, coming back she could stand with the belt, and a therapist, and her jaw set like a woman who has decided the floor works for her. Her right hand, weak. And her words, gone, not her mind. Her words. The neurologist had a name for it, and the name doesn't matter. What it means is, the sentences are still in there, whole, and the bridge they used to walk out on is bombed. She'd look at me, and everything Dolores was there in her eyes, backed up like traffic. The most she could reliably send across was no. Her therapist, Rosalie, a young woman who carries laminated word cards that smell like cherry marker, told me no is usually first back, and that I shouldn't read anything into it. I read something into it anyway, because I know my mother. 74 years old, robbed blind, and the first tool the good Lord hands her back is no. Tell me that's a coincidence. We fell into a rhythm, the way families do, and the rhythm had a shape I didn't look at straight for a few days. I ran my route at 6 to 10, and by 9 I was in the chair at her window with a thermos, and I learned the 4th floor the way you learn a route which nurse hums, which wheel on the medcart squeaks, that the charge nurse Tabitha wears Christmas socks in May because, she says, the floor needs it. Afternoons, Phyllis. Evenings, me and Mitch and Paige, doing her homework in the deep windowsill because she said Grandma liked the sound of the pencil. And she's right, she did. And Candace came at shift change, smelling like a department store, stayed 20 minutes, and handled. She was magnificent, if you didn't know what you were looking at. She had a laminated phone list. She had opinions about the rehab facilities ranked in a spiral notebook. On day 1, while our mother was still in the ICU with a tube taped to her cheek, my sister stood at the window in the family lounge and said to Phyllis, to Roger, to the room everybody breathe, "I've got the paperwork side handled. Becky, you're better at the bedside stuff. Day 1, that sounded like kindness. Hold that sentence up to the light of day 11, the sitting and the handling, and you can see it was the same sentence, wearing scrubs. Now come stand at my mother's mailbox with me, because this is where it turns. Somebody had to keep her house running while she was down plants, thermostat, the mail. I took it because taking it felt like sitting, and sitting was mine. Bills came. I paid the electric out of my own checking and didn't think twice. And on the 8th day Wednesday, the 14th of May, the mailbox on Quarry Street had 2 envelopes in it that were about to take my quiet little rhythm apart. The first was from Windrow Savings, addressed to my mother, with the red words on the front they print right on the envelope so you can't not see them. Overdraft notice. I stood in her driveway and opened it, and I'm not going to apologize for opening it. Somebody's lights have to stay on. That somebody opens the mail. It said that on the 12th of May, her health supplement premium $91.40, automatic, the same payment that had gone out clean on the 12th of every month for years had been returned. Insufficient funds. And then, in that flat bank font, it said the number that made the driveway tilt. Available balance, $212.44. $212.44. In the account of a woman with a paid-off house, a railroad pension, and $52,000 of roof money that had been sitting one window over at that same bank since the summer we buried my father. While she lay in a hospital bed, unable to say the word no to anybody about anything the insurance protecting her had bounced. For $91. The second envelope was from the county. Department of Job and Family Services, Adult Protective Services Unit, addressed to Mrs. Dolores Hedrick, asking her politely, in the language of an agency that mails 1,000 of these a year, to please contact a caseworker regarding a matter concerning her accounts. I sat down on my mother's porch steps with an envelope in each hand, and Chester's mower going 1 yard over, and I did the thing I do when the bus gets loud. I got very quiet, and I started counting. If you've ever stood in a driveway holding a piece of paper that can't be true, a bill, a balance, a letter about somebody you love, I want to hear about it in the comments, because I've read enough of yours to know I'm in good company. And if you're new on this porch, subscribe now, because what I found in my mother's freezer the next night is the reason this story has a second half. That evening, I went through her kitchen drawer, the one under the wall phone, where she's kept her checkbook register since Nixon. My mother kept that register the way she portioned potatoes to the ounce. Every check, every deposit, her running balance in the margin, carried forward page to page in handwriting so steady you could set type by it. The last balance she'd written was from the third week of February, $58,911.06. Her math said $58,911. The bank said $212. Between my mother's pencil and my mother's bank, there was a hole $58,000 wide, and I could not ask her about it, because 11 days earlier the phone lines in her head had gone down, and the only two words she could hand me were yes, sometimes, and no, always. I didn't sleep that night. Around 1 a.m, I was sitting in the kitchen doing the thing everybody does now instead of praying, scrolling my phone in the dark, and my thumb went past the voicemail icon, and the little dot was still on it. March 30th. One saved message. 31 seconds. I want you to hear my mother's voice the way I heard it, at 1 a.m. at my kitchen table. She talks fast on machines. She doesn't trust them not to cut her off. Becca, it's your mother. Nothing's wrong. Don't get in the car. I went down to Windrow this morning about a tax paper they sent on your daddy's CD. And honey, there's a thing on my statement I don't understand yet. I want to ask you about it before I say anything to your sister. It's probably me. It's probably nothing. Don't say anything to Candace. Promise me. Not till I've got it counted right. Okay, that's all. Even is even, honey. Call your mother. Call your mother. And I hadn't. She'd stood at the end of the diving board on that Sunday phone call with the rhubarb, and I'd had a pork roast steaming up my glasses. And the one time in 74 years, my mother asked me, instead of my sister, the dot just sat there on my phone for 5 weeks. I listened to it 11 times. Then I sat with my hand flat over my mouth so I wouldn't wake Mitch. And then I did wake Mitch. Because 44 years old is old enough to know you don't sit with a thing like that alone. He listened to it once, set the phone down gentle, and said the thing I married him for, okay? What did she go looking for? And where would she have put it when she found it? Because that's the question, isn't it? A tax paper about the CD. A thing on my statement I don't understand yet. Not till I've got it counted right. My mother wasn't confused in that message. My mother was investigating. 5 weeks before the stroke, Dolores Hedrick had caught a loose thread in her own bank paperwork, pulled it, and told nobody but a machine. The next evening after the hospital, I went to her house to clean out the perishables you leave a widow's fridge running untended for 2 weeks. You learn things about Mercy, and that's when I found where she'd put it. My mother's freezer is organized like a card catalog. Bread heels for stuffing, labeled. Sauce in pints, labeled. And her rhubarb, cut and bagged every June, gallon bags in marker. Rhubarb 23. Rhubarb 24. I was stacking them into a cooler for Chester when the 24 bag came up wrong. Too light, too square. There was no rhubarb in it at all. There was a fold of papers in a zip bag inside the zip bag, dry as a hymnal. Bank statements, the printed kind, teller-stamped, the kind you have to walk in and ask a human being for, because 2 Christmases ago, Paperless took her mailbox out of the loop. A single savings passbook, an appointment card, and every page of it worked over in my mother's pencil. I laid it out on her kitchen table in the order she'd numbered the corners, and I'm going to tell you what my mother did, alone, at 74, in the 5 weeks before her stroke, because somebody in that family was a detective, and it was never going to be me. She'd gone to Windrow on the 28th of March because the tax form said interest on a certificate of deposit that had been closed. Closed in January. My mother thought that CD rolled over every year like a tide. It hadn't rolled. It had been redeemed $52,000, moved into the joint checking in the third week of January on a signature that wasn't hers. So she asked the teller to print her everything. 26 months of everything. And then Dolores Hedrick took 26 months of bank statements home in her purse, hid them in a rhubarb bag, and did what she did to every tray that ever crossed her line. She portioned it. Little check marks in pencil next to every line. She recognized her pension landing, her electric, her tithe, her hair appointment, and next to the lines she didn't recognize, a small, neat, capital C. Transfer to account, ending in 551. $500, the first of the month, the first of every month. 26 of them, like fence posts. C. Check number 811. Paid to Tuggle family account, $2,200. Marked Furnace in the memo line. From a March 2 years back. C. My mother's furnace is a 1998 Bryant with a repair sticker on it from 2009 and not one sticker since. I went down her basement stairs with a flashlight to check that and stood there in the cold with the beam on it for a while. $11,500 on a single line last June. Transfer out on the 3rd. My father died on a 3rd of June, 6 years to the day, after Lowell Hedrick fell in his own yard. His life insurance money made a down payment on the 31-foot camper that has been sitting under a fitted cover in Candace and Roger's driveway ever since, like a casserole nobody's allowed to eat. 2 withdrawals of $8,000, February and March of this year, teller line, in person, C. And on the bottom of every page, her carrying totals in that lunch line arithmetic, columns straight as a hymn board, and on the last page, circled twice, pressed so hard the pencil went through to the table, $48,650. Under the circle there was one word, in her block capitals, the ones she used on labels so there'd be no mistake in the reading. The word was ASK, not police, not thief, not Candace, ask. $48,650 walked out of her accounts in 26 months. She'd traced every dollar of it in pencil to the daughter she'd handed the checkbook, and the plan my mother wrote down was to give that daughter the chance to explain it to her face before one word of it went anywhere else. Even is even, all the way down. She was going to let the older one hold the knife, and the younger one know. She was going to do what she'd always done. One cut, dead center, everybody keeps their name. Tucked behind the last statement was the appointment card. Windrow Savings, green logo, a teller's round hand. Tuesday, May 13th, 9:30 in the morning, ask for Deanne. The stroke was the 6th. My mother missed the appointment where she was going to get her life back by 7 days, and the tax form nobody in the scheme could stop the government from mailing one stray piece of honest paper is the only reason anybody was ever going to know. I sat at her kitchen table with all of it squared up in front of me, and I didn't cry, which surprised me. I counted. 4 kids to a seat, 11 seats, that's the bus. 26 months, $500 a month, that's the floor of it. 2 envelopes, 1 voicemail, 1 word in block capitals. Some women get mad in fire. I get mad in inventory. By midnight, I knew every number in that bag the way I know the porch lights on Route 7, and the coldest one wasn't the 48,000. It was 9140. She took the roof. She took the camper. She took my father's insurance money down to where a $91 premium bounced the premium, keeping my mother covered in the exact hospital bed she was lying in. There's your transparency, Candace. There's the whole family on one return check. Now, I need to stop here and tell you what I didn't do, because the ending stands on it. I didn't drive to my sister's house. Believe me, the truck knew the way. I didn't call Phyllis, and I didn't put it in the family group text, and I didn't stand in a hospital hallway hissing at anybody over a sleeping woman, and there was no bait in anything that came after I asked for nothing. I arranged nothing. I warned nobody. I want that understood, not because I'm proud, but because it's true in a way the county could later stand behind. Every single thing my sister did from here on, she did on her own schedule, with her own printer. What I did was follow my mother's pencil. She wrote one word. I did the word. The next morning, Friday, day 10, I sat in the truck outside Windrow Savings at 9 o'clock with the rhubarb bag in a grocery sack. And at 9:01, I asked for Deanne. Deanne Yoder has run that branch since it had a coffee percolator, and she initials everything in green felt tip because, she'll tell you, black ink is how mistakes hide. And she drinks out of a mug with a man's name on it that doesn't belong to anybody working at that branch, and nobody asks, because some mugs you don't ask about. She took one look at the name on my little visitor slip and stood up from her desk before I'd said a word. Here's what a good banker can't do, and I'm telling you because it's the part everybody gets wrong. She could not show me my mother's account, not a line of it. I wasn't on it. That's the law, and the law's right, even when it's standing on your foot. But a bank manager who's been at one desk for 30 years can say true things in a row and let you do your own addition. She said, I can't discuss any account with you. She said, I can tell you Windrow takes financial exploitation of older customers seriously, and that we file reports with the county when something doesn't sit right. We don't wait for families to ask, she said. The county's letter usually gets there before mine would. And then she took her glasses off and set them on the desk blotter and said the sentence she'd been holding since the 6th of May. I had your mother down for Tuesday the 13th, 9:30. She booked it the last week of April. She asked for the first morning I had. In 30 years, I could count on one hand the people who ask for me by name and then don't come. And every one of them, Rebecca, every single one, there was a reason. She'd kept the appointment slot open, by the way. 9:30 had come and gone empty on the 13th, and Deanne had sat there with her Tuesday coffee and let it stay empty, like setting a place for somebody. Then she'd picked up the phone and made her own call. Bankers have a word for the report they file. I'm not going to teach it to you, because the word's not the point. The point is that the paper my sister thought she'd shut off had learned to walk on its own. That afternoon, I called the number on the county's letter, and by Monday, I was across a folding table from a detective named Muncie, county sheriff's office, financial crimes, a big quiet man who writes in a pocket notebook so small it disappears in his hand, like a bear taking minutes. I slid the freezer bag across. He turned pages with one finger for a long time. He said, Your mother do this pencil work? I said she did. He said, Before the stroke. I said, 5 weeks before, and here's the voicemail that dates it. And I put my phone on the table and played my mother's voice in a room where it's a crime to lie, and watched a detective listen to Even is Even, Honey, Call Your Mother, and click his pen. Then he explained the thing I'm going to hand to you now, plain, because every family with a helpful name on Grandma's checking needs it nailed to the door. The second name on a joint account isn't a helper, it's an owner, and the bank owes the first name no phone call when the second name starts to spend. That's the whole trick, and it's legal right up to the second it isn't. Joint means Candace could pay Mom's bills without a court order. It does not mean Mom's money was hers to take, and Ohio quit winking at that a long time ago. There's a statute with a dry little name, and inside the dry little name it says, when the money of a person over 60 is taken for somebody else's benefit by the person she trusted, that's not family business, that's a felony. The pencil, Muncie said, tapping the last page the pencil is what does it. Her own hand, her own math, before the stroke. Usually, I'm reconstructing what the victim knew. Your mother left me her own case file in a rhubarb bag. He kept the originals. I kept copies, and the card, and the phone. He said the thing lawmen say don't discuss the case, and for once in my life the assignment was silence, and I was overqualified. I went from Muncie's folding table to the 4th floor and sat with my mother while she worked with Rosalie and the cherry marker cards, and she got water on the 3rd try, and Rosalie lit up like a scoreboard, and my mother looked over at me with her jaw set, and I thought, you counted them, Mama. Lying here with your words bombed out, you'd already counted every dollar. Nobody in that family had the first idea who they were dealing with, including, I'll admit it, me. Candace, meanwhile, was moving on her own schedule, exactly like I said. Tuesday, day 7. Before the mailbox, before the freezer, before any of it, she'd stood at the foot of Mom's bed rearranging the get-well cards by height and floated it, casual as a leaf coming down. We should probably all sit down about the house soon. Rehab's not free, you know. By Thursday, it had a time. By Friday, it had an agenda, because the library prints 10 pages for $1. Saturday, 4 o'clock, the hallway alcove by the family lounge. So, quote, we can all be on the same page, and Mom's right there with us. She picked the room. I did not pick the room. I want that plain. And then I'll tell you what happened in it. She chose a public hallway on a hospital floor, 8 feet from our mother's door, because an audience had always worked for her. Phyllis folds in front of witnesses. I go quiet in front of witnesses. Her whole life, a hallway had never once cost my sister anything. Mitch asked me Friday night if I was going to warn her that's the kind of man I married. He'd worn a raccoon before he moved the trash cans, and I thought about it, honestly, for about the length of one breath. Then I said, she scheduled it, Mitch. She printed an agenda. All I'm going to do is come to the meeting. If you have ever sat on a thing that big for 2 days, through a Friday supper, through a Saturday morning route of empty weekend roads, with your mother's arithmetic in a grocery sack in the hall closet, tell me below what it cost you, because I chewed exactly no fingernails and slept exactly no hours. And if you're still not subscribed, fix that now, friend, because you're about to be in that hallway with me. And I made a promise you'll want to hear kept. The promise that on this porch, the quiet ones get their whole turn. Saturday, 4 o'clock, 4th floor. She dressed for it. That's the detail I'll keep till I die, the good blazer, the folder, a fresh manicure, the color of a heart attack. Tabitha was at the station pretending to chart. A man from environmental services was running his floor machine down by the elevators in long, slow passes. Phyllis, purse in both arms. Roger, studying tile. Mitch's hand between my shoulder blades, and through the cracked door of 411, my mother, asleep on her left side, her strong side, the way Rosalie taught her. Candace passed out her pages. Plan for Mom, rehab costs, the house, transparency. And she squared her folder and looked down the little line of us and said it, word for word, the sentence I froze for you at the beginning. And I promised you we'd come back and go through it together, so here we go. You do the sitting, Becky. I'll do the handling. It's what I've been doing for 6 years, and it's what Mom would want. And then, to Phyllis, with her eyes coming back to me for the landing. And before anybody asks why the account looks thin, Mom's been generous with some people. That's all I'll say. We'll keep that in the family. Phyllis made a little sound and hugged her purse. Roger's ears went red, and I logged that, the way you log a brake light. And I felt the old family machinery start to turn under me, the quiet younger one, the bad with money one, cooked down 20 years ago into a story that fit on a flag. And here's what I want to tell you about that feeling, you who know it. The machinery only works if you feed it your silence. That's the whole engine. That's all it ever ran on. I didn't raise anything. Not my voice, not my chin. On the bus, when it goes bad back there, the last thing you do is get loud, you get exact. I used the voice I use at 60 miles an hour, with 44 heads behind me, the one that stops a fight without waking a kindergartner 2 seats up. I said, "What's the balance, Candace?" She blinked. She said, "What?" "The balance." Mom's checking. You handle it. Say the number to Aunt Phyllis, out loud, to the dollar. You put transparency on your own agenda, honey. 3rd bullet. Go ahead. And my sister, 52 years, 1 library agenda, 6 years of handled, looked at me and said, "That's not I don't have it memorized. Becky, that's not the point of this meeting." So I said it for her. $212.44. The floor machine reached the end of its pass, and the man shut it off, and the hallway got that hum quiet that hospitals keep in the walls. I watched the number go into Phyllis like weather. Even Roger looked up off the tile. Candace's mouth did something small and fast, and then the composure came back down over her like a shade. She was good, my sister. She'd been good at this since Carter, and she went to the place she always went, Becky. Honey, nobody blames you for not understanding how expensive things have been. Mom's had 6 years of upkeep, taxes, the trip money, her little gifts, and, honestly, with your history, I'm not sure you're the one to audit anybody. She said the word history with a little pat in it, right there in front of a nurse and a floor man, and God forgive me, part of me admired it. My sister, at 52, still fast with a knife at range, I slid the appointment card from my shirt pocket, gave the hallway a second to find the green bank logo on it, and set it down on top of her agenda, square on the word transparency. I said, Windrow Savings, 9:30 in the morning, Tuesday the 13th of May. Ask for Deanne. Mom booked it the last week of April. She was walking into that bank 7 days after her stroke didn't let her, Candace, and she wasn't going in there to talk about upkeep. My sister looked at the card, and I watched her try to file it. You could see the drawers opening and shutting behind her eyes, none of them fitting, and she said, What is this? And her voice had lost exactly 1 layer of paint. I said, She found the CD in January, on the tax paper. $52,000 of Daddy's insurance, redeemed with nobody's permission she ever gave. So she walked into that branch on the 28th of March and had them print 26 months. And she took it all home in her purse. And she sat at her own kitchen table, alone, at 74. And she did what she did to every lunch tray this town ever slid past her. She counted it. I had the pages in my tote in page order, my mother's corner numbers keeping them honest, and I did not hand them around. Because they weren't mine to deal out, the originals were already in a county evidence sleeve, and the county says less is more till trial. But I read 4 lines, just 4. $500, transfer to account ending 551, the first of the month, 26 months straight. Her pencil says C. 2200, check 811, memo furnace. Her furnace is a 98 Bryant Candace. Last sticker, 2009. Her pencil says C. 11,500, transferred out June 3rd of last year, 6 years to the day after Daddy died in his yard. It's parked in your driveway under a cover. Her pencil says C. 8,000 and another 8,000, February and March, teller window, in person, while she was still sending you birthday money, C and C. And at the bottom of the last page, in her hand, pressed clean through the paper, $48,650, and 1 word under it, not police, Candace, not thief. Ask. She was going to sit you down at her table and give you the chance to look her in the eye and explain it before she said 1 word to me, to Phyllis, to anybody, because her whole life, even when the whole rest of us had picked a story, that woman gave both her girls the same size scoop. That's who you were doing this to. That's who's behind that door with her words gone. Phyllis had gone the color of the wall. She whispered, and bless her, it was the first fully honest sentence out of anybody yet, Candace. Tell me, this isn't so. And my sister stood up straighter, which is what she does instead of bleeding, and reached for the last tool in the box. The tears came up on schedule, and with them, all 3 verses, in order, like she'd printed those too. Verse 1, the sacrifice. Do any of you have the faintest idea what I gave up for this family? I was 19. I had my program in Canton. I had my deposit paid. And Daddy's heart went. And who stayed? Who got Becky off the bus every day of 8th grade? Somebody had to run this family, and nobody ever once asked me if I wanted the job. Verse 2, the blame. And she swung it at the bed. Mom's 74. Becky. She forgets. She never wrote half her spending down. She's been slipping for 2 years. Everybody's seen it. You're going to take a confused old woman's chicken scratch over your own sister? That one I stepped in front of, because there are things you let cost you, and things you don't, I said, quiet. The pencil work runs to the dollar, Candace. 26 months, carried page to page, and the county's forensic person says it reconciles to the statement like a plumb line. The only thing that woman ever got wrong in that folder is that she still called you C. And verse 3, right on time, the authority. My sister wiped her eyes with one knuckle, gathered herself, and produced it. The sentence she'd been standing on for 6 years, the load-bearing sentence, and I swear she believed it as she said it. My name is on that account. Joint means joint. Half of it is legally mine, and I've earned every. Roger said her name. Just her name. First thing he'd said since the elevator. He was still looking at the tile, and his ears were still red, and he said, "Candace, I asked you twice where the camper come from. You said your mother insisted. Said she'd have been hurt if we turned it down." His voice wasn't angry. It was worse than angry. It was tired. The voice of a man setting down something he'd been carrying up a long hill. Then he looked at the door of 411, and then at his shoes, and said, "To nobody, to the tile. She signs the cards to the boys' monies tight this year. She's been signing 'em that way 2 years. The hallway held still. Somewhere down by the elevators, the floor man stood with his hands folded on the handle of his machine, like a man at a graveside. And into that stillness, I played it. I'd had the phone in my hand the whole time, the voicemail cued, thumb on the triangle, because I'd promised myself one thing driving over. Today, in this hallway, Mom talks. Not the flag with my name on it, not Candace's agenda, her. 31 seconds, speaker turned all the way up, held out flat on my palm like something being offered to be smelled. "Becca, it's your mother. Nothing's wrong. Don't get in the car. I went down to Windrow this morning about a tax paper they sent on your daddy's CD. And honey, there's a thing on my statement I don't understand yet. I want to ask you about it before I say anything to your sister. It's probably me. It's probably nothing. Don't say anything to Candace. Promise me. Not till I've got it counted right. Okay, that's all. Even is even, honey. Call your mother." I watched my mother's voice go down that hallway and do what none of the rest of us could. Tabitha stopped pretending to chart. Phyllis sat down on the arm of the lounge chair like her strings were cut, saying, "Oh, Dolores! Oh, Dolores!" Roger closed his eyes. And my sister, took one step back and put her hand out for the wall. And for the first time since she was 19 years old, Candace Tuggle was in a room she wasn't running. Because everybody in that alcove understood at the same instant what that recording was. It was dated. It was March 30th. It was our mother, sharp as a tack, 5 weeks before the stroke. Having already caught it, I've got it counted right and being careful of Candace, protective of Candace. Building her sister the world's gentlest courtroom, one word long, ask. Candace said, and her voice came out small and young. And if I didn't know better, I'd have said it came out relieved she knew. She knew, I said. She counted you to the dollar, and her plan was to hear you out first. So you tell me, Candace, which one of us was ever actually handled. My sister looked at the door of room 411 for a long moment. And I'll give her this one true thing, because Mom would make me, whatever was in her face right then, it wasn't the blazer talking. It was somebody looking at 26 months of first-of-the-month transfers through the only window that was ever going to matter. The one with Dolores Hedrick on the other side of it. Then she picked her folder up off the chair, and her chin came back, and the shade came down again, and she said, "This conversation needs a lawyer in it." First smart thing anybody'd said all day. "It already has one," I said. "County Prosecutor's Office, Financial Crimes. Detective's name is Muncie. They've had the originals since Monday." "The bank filed before I ever walked in. You weren't waiting to get caught, Candace. You'd been caught for weeks. The only person left who hadn't gotten her turn to say so was Mom. She got it today." My sister walked to the elevators with her heels going quick on the wet, clean floor, past the man with the machine, who did not look at her, and the doors took her. And that was the meeting. Phyllis was crying into her purse. Roger stood another minute like a chair nobody sat in, and then he said, to me, quietly, "Whatever they need from me, they get. Tell 'em." And he went down the stairwell instead of waiting for the elevator, because there are men who cannot stand in a small box with their own wife on the day the wall gives out, and I've decided that's a point in his favor. Me? I picked the appointment card up off her abandoned agenda, put it back in my shirt pocket, and went through the door of 411, and sat down in my chair, and took my mother's left hand, the strong one. They can have the hallway. I had a head to count. She was awake. "Don't let anybody tell you what a woman with no words can't ask you with her eyebrows," I said. "It's handled, Mama." And then I heard the word in my own mouth, and I took it back. "No, it's counted. You counted it. I just read it to the class." And my mother, 74 years old, 11 days off a stroke, her words bombed to rubble behind her eyes, squeezed my hand once, hard, with the grip they measure at therapy, and out of the whole ruined bridge she pushed the one plank she had. No. And she smiled when she said it, so I'd know which no it was. The good no. The one that means, no, you did more than that, and don't argue with your mother. What happened after happened at the speed paper happens, which is the speed of a county printer, and I'll give it to you the way the county gave it to us, flat and in order, because after a story like this you don't want my adjectives, you want the record. Muncie took Roger's statement on a Tuesday. Roger brought the camper title with him, and his own bank records, unasked. The prosecutor charged my sister that summer with financial exploitation of an elderly person when it's north of 37.5 in this state. That particular dry little name is a second-degree felony, and 48,650 is north of it plus a count for the signature on the CD redemption. In November, she pled to the exploitation count. The signature count went away in the deal, the way counts do, and I've made my peace with that, because what the plea bought was this. Full restitution, $48,650, entered as a judgment with the first 20 up front. The camper left their driveway on a flatbed on a Wednesday, cover and all, and I did not stand in the window to watch it go, but Boone barked the whole time from the driveway, and I let him the balance on a schedule with teeth, 5 years of probation, and a no-contact order with Mom's finances for life. No jail, first offense, full repayment. Phyllis thinks jail. Some days I visit thinking jail. But my mother wrote one word on that folder, and it wasn't cage, so I follow the pencil. The Monday after the hallway, I filed in probate court, and in August the judge made me guardian of my mother's estate, bonded, which means insured against me, and audited, which means every April I file an accounting with the court where every dollar of Dolores Hedrick's money is listed next to what it did. Anybody can walk in and read it. Nobody in my family will ever have to take anybody's word for anything again, least of all mine. Turns out there was a version of transparency available all along. It just files under oath. Deanne walked me through getting the returned premium made good inside the grace period, so the supplement never lapsed, $91.40, the first check the new account ever wrote, and I'd frame the carbon if it didn't scare the company. Statements come on paper now, to 2 addresses, mine and Phyllis's, because the lesson of the whole rotten thing is 4 words long. Paper goes 2 places. And the roof got done in September. Real shingles, 30-year. The color Mom pointed to on the sample board with her left hand. First thing her money bought her back. And Mom came home. October the 9th. Not to Quarry Street to us. The back bedroom, Paige and Mitch spent Labor Day painting the yellow of her old kitchen, because the therapists want stairs kept to a minimum, and I want her where I can hear her radio. Chester mows her whole yard now, both halves, Thursdays, and won't take gas money, and we've quit insulting him by offering. Rosalie comes Tuesdays. The words are coming back the way spring comes back in Ohio crooked, with reversals. She's got maybe 40 she can trust. No, came first. Becky came fourth, and I went out to the truck and sat a while the day it did. Here's your ending, because you've sat with me this long and you've earned the yard. Last Sunday of October, my back porch. Paige had band friends over, and the crowns from Mom's rhubarb bed were in a wheelbarrow because we'd dug them that afternoon to move them to my garden. You can move rhubarb in the fall if you take the whole root, and it doesn't sulk. It just gets on with it in the new dirt. And if my mother were fully back, she'd tell you that's the whole trick to everything. Supper was chili and cornbread on paper plates. And there was one brownie left on the pan, and two kids eyeballing it, Paige and the trombone section boy who's always here at supper time lately, and I watched my mother watch them. And Dolores Hedrick reached over and took the butter knife off the cornbread plate with her left hand. One cut, dead center. She held the pan out to the boy the older one holds, the younger one picks. The law is the law, and Paige picked. And my mother looked up at all of us with the knife still in her hand, and she said it. Out loud, 4 words, whole, in a row. First full sentence since the 6th of May, clear as a supper bell. Even is even, honey. The porch went up like a ball game. Boone howled. Rosalie got a video of it Tuesday, and I'm told it's now shown to other families in that therapy office, 74 years old and famous. And my sister, since you'll ask, texted me on Mom's birthday in November. 3 words. Tell her happy birthday. I didn't answer it, and I didn't delete it. I brought the phone to the yellow bedroom and held it where Mom could read, and my mother looked at that screen a good long minute and patted my wrist twice and handed it back and said one of her 40 words. Later. So that's where that door stands. It isn't shut. It's later. It's her door. And for the first time since Daddy died, every door in that woman's life is hers. And whatever happens at some future kitchen table happens with her holding the knife and Candace doing the picking, even, all the way down. I used to think taking care of my mother meant the chair, the sitting, the driving, the little jobs, the being nearby. Now I know the biggest part of the job was making sure that when her words went out, it was still her voice that ran the meeting. That's my story. An overdraft notice for $91.40, a freezer bag marked rhubarb with 26 months of pencil in it, and 31 saved seconds of my mother's voice. If one person handles your mother's money, one name, one login, one I've got it, make this the week the statements start going to 2 addresses. Because paper that goes 2 places can't be quietly turned off. And if your mother leaves you a voicemail, you listen to it the day she leaves it, and then you keep it. You hear me? Keep it. Share this one with the person in your family who does the driving to the appointments. They'll know why. And tell me in the comments which seat you've been riding in, the sitting or the handling, because I read every single one from this porch, and I answer more than I admit. That's all of it. Thank you for sitting with me on the porch tonight. If this found you in a hallway of your own, my porch light's on. Subscribe if you want a seat next Sunday. I'll see you in the next one.